and then couldn't take them off the base. Have his quarters been turned out?" Waldeur's lips lifted in a grimace of exasperation. "Please, Colonel," he said wearily, "this is not a kindergarten exercise. In confirmation of his success, listen." He touched a button on his desk, and out of the air came the emotionless chant of a newscaster. "Fears for the safety of Lassiter Camden, space expediter for the West Conference Space Council, have been confirmed by the discovery of burned wreckage in the mountains. Mr. Camden was returning from a mission to the Star Laboratory when his plane lost contact with Ragnar Field. Reports of a storm in that vicinity immediately raised concern." Waldauer snapped off the voice. "True, or a cover for his escape?" Calgaries wondered aloud. "Could be either. They may have deliberately written him off when they had all they wanted," Waldauer acknowledged. "But to get back to our troubles, Dr. Ruthven is right to assume the worst. I believe we can only ensure the recovery of our project by thinking that these tapes were snooped anywhere from 18 months ago to last week. And we must work accordingly." There was silence in the room as they all considered that. Ash slipped down in his chair, his thoughts enmeshed in memories. First, there had been Operation Retrograde, when specially trained time agents had shuttled back and forth in history, striving to locate and track down the mysterious source of alien knowledge which the Eastern communistic nations had suddenly begun to use. Ash himself and a younger partner, Ross Murdoch, had been part of the final action which had solved the mystery, having traced that source of knowledge not to an earlier and forgotten Terran civilization, but to wrecked spaceships from an eon-old galactic empire, an empire which had flourished when glacial ice covered most of Europe and Northern America, and Terrans were cave-dwelling primitives. Murdoch, trapped by the Reds in one of those wrecked ships, had inadvertently summoned its original owners, who had descended to trace, through the Russian time stations, the looters of their wrecks, destroying the whole Red time travel system. But the aliens had not chanced on the parallel Western system, and a year later they had been put into Project Folsom 1. Again, Ash, Murdoch, and a newcomer, the Apache Travis Fox, had gone back into time to the Arizona of the Folsom Hunters, discovering what they wanted: 2 ships, one wrecked, the other intact. And when the full efforts of the project had been centered on bringing the intact ship back into the present, chance had triggered controls set by the dead alien commander. A party of 4, Ash, Murdoch, Fox, and a technician, had then made an involuntary voyage into space, touching 3 worlds on which the galactic civilization of the far past was now marked only by ruins. Voyage tape, fed into the controls of the ship, had taken the men, and when rewound had, by a miracle, returned them to Terra with a cargo of similar tapes found in a building on a world which might have been the central capital for a government comprised not of countries or of worlds, but of solar systems. Tapes, each one the key to another planet. And that ancient galactic knowledge was treasure such as the Terrans had never dreamed of possessing, though there were the attendant fears that such discoveries could be weapons in enemy hands. There had been an enforced sharing with other nations of tapes chosen at random at a great drawing. And each nation secretly remained convinced that, in spite of the untold riches it might hold as a result of chance, its rivals had done better. Right at this moment, Ash did not in the least doubt there were agents of his own party intent on accomplishing at the Red Project just what Camden had done there. However, that did not help in solving their present dilemma concerning Operation Cochise, one part of their project, but perhaps the most important now. Some of the tapes were duds, either too damaged to be useful or set for worlds hostile to Terrans lacking the equipment the earlier star-traveling race had had at its command. Of the 5 tapes they now knew had been snooped, 3 would be useless to the enemy. But one of the remaining 2, Ash frowned. One was the goal toward which they had been